So, My Hero Academia Manga Chapter 340 has been released, and in this video, I want to go over just one slight difference between the official and unofficial translations, but I want to go over and discuss the characters of Aoyama and Shinso and see where their story is going to be going until the end. So, let's get into it, but first, right after this. Hey guys, how's it going? It is your boy, Manga Drew, and I'm here to do my discussion for My Hero Academia Manga Chapter 340 titled The Story of How We Became Heroes Part 3. And like I said, from what we see with the official translation, most likely this is going to be the naming scheme for the chapters until, I don't know, we reach a big moment such as the Todoroki family debacle, or something with the characters of Shigaraki or Deku, or All for One or One for All. But from what we're seeing, this is the naming scheme. And when it comes to this video, I really want to go over and discuss just the characters of Aoyama as well as Shinso, talk about a little bit of what they've been through and how they may be connected with one another and how that connection is going to move the story forward in the next few chapters. So yeah, before we get more into it, I'd like to ask you, if you haven't done so, to subscribe to my YouTube channel. I cover My Hero Academia content, the discussions, the spoilers, as well as reviews. So if that's something that you're interested in and you want to see more of it, subscribe to my YouTube channel. And with that out the way, let's first talk about the differences. So when it comes to the differences between the official and unofficial translations for this chapter, relatively speaking, they were quite the same. Nothing really spectacularly different occurred between the official and unofficial translations, only with one specific page, and it's around page 2. And this just comes from what they are talking about when it comes to Hawks. In the unofficial translation, they are talking about how the reasoning why their group is small and why they're meeting up is because of Aoyama, and how these are the people that they want to trust, or that they can trust at this moment, and that they need to start discussing about the situation with Aoyama. That is what is stated in the unofficial translation, but it is slightly different in the official translation. Because in the official translation, they pretty much bring up the fact that the people in this room are the ones that they trust with the situation, and they know that they can trust based off the situation that they are in, which would include the police officers, the pilots, as well as Ragdoll, because they know that they can trust her because she had her quirk stolen. And that the reasoning why they are the ones meeting here is because the other people that they are unable to connect with, the heroes such as Endeavor, Best Genius, and the others, are out in the field. So these are the ones that they can have to deal with now, and that they have to keep it small, and that these are the ones that they guarantee they know they can trust at this moment. So yeah, it's a little bit slight difference. The main difference is that this conversation and them meeting up is not based off Aoyama, but solely based on wanting to discuss the plan moving forward. And generally speaking, when it came to this chapter, the plan, or at least their goals, are more straightforward. It's not really accurate to call them plans, but more or less that they are goals that they want to achieve. The main goal is separating All for One and Shigaraki by 10 kilometers, which is around 6.6 miles, as well as taking out the vanguard units, or the main villain hitters such as Dabi, in one-on-one fights, setting up how the final war fights are going to be. And that's pretty much what it is. Not necessarily a plan, but goals, because in the chapter they also bring up whether it's goal A or goal B, their main objective is to separate the villains and fight them off one at a time, and make sure that All for One and Shigaraki don't meet up together. So yeah, there's not really much that you can say really on that. We just get their objectives, and potentially we haven't gotten the full scope of the goal, and we probably won't get that until the actual fighting commences. Which means that most of this chapter is focused on the characterization and the conversation between Aoyama as well as Eraserhead, and that was a very impactful conversation. The conversation was pretty much just Aoyama doubting himself, doubting his own abilities, and Eraserhead Aizawa trying to take away the fear that was instilled inside of him by All for One. So we really get a better understanding of how Aoyama feels about himself, and how he feels as if he won't be able to shine brighter than his fellow classmates, and that he doesn't really deserve their praise or their platitudes, and that he deserves the lowest thing that he can think of, which is just dying alone. But what's also interesting about that is that even though he thinks that, he also realizes that he still needs to fight, and that he'll probably be used in the similar vein by by the heroes. And what's amazing about this is that Aizawa doesn't say that that won't be the case. Pretty much during this entire conversation, Aizawa is playing both good cop and bad cop. He's telling Aoyama how it is, and that even though most likely he won't be like charged for any of his wrong deeds, or he won't have major consequences for it, Aizawa tells him that he still will have consequences for it, and those consequences may be as little as the fact that he won't be able to forget what he has done, and that those sins will always follow him and weigh on him. Which is very interesting, because that also ties more into Aizawa's character, as well as what he has been trying to teach the students, because that is something that he can definitively relate to, because he is also weighted by the burden and the consequences of his actions for what happened with Shirakumo. Aizawa most likely blames himself for Shirakumo's death, and that is something that weighs on him, which directly ties to what he has done throughout the entire series. And probably my favorite part of this entire conversation is just seeing Aoyama and Aizawa sitting in a room where Aizawa tells Aoyama that what he taught him isn't for these kids or these students to live a life burdened with guilt, but to keep walking alongside each other down the path of heroism. And how this ties into what Aizawa has been trying to teach these students, which is that they should value their lives, and how they shouldn't just throw their lives away, that they should value them, and if it means valuing their lives and putting their lives on the lines for being heroes, that they should do so without being burdened by guilt. So it kind of ties into this understood idea of what Aizawa is trying to tell him, and the fact of the matter is that he does truly care about these students, and how he will always try to walk alongside them no matter what they do, because he is their teacher and they are his students. And how this is where it sort of kind of ties Aoyama into Shinso, and how they do have a fair amount in common. For starters, Shinso is the opposite kind of discrimination that Aoyama felt. Where Aoyama and Deku felt discrimination because they are quirkless and that they couldn't be heroes, Shinso felt discrimination by having a quirk that was seen as objectively villainous, and that kind of shaped his personality into who it was at the beginning of the story. About how he sort of kind of took on that role of being a villain and doing duplicitous things if it means that he achieves his dream of being a hero. So it will be like Aoyama, who was a villain pretending to be a hero but wants to be a hero, while you have Shinso, who is a regular person who pretends to be a villain so that they can be a hero. So there is a lot that you could connect between these characters, and a main thing that connects them together is that Aizawa is their teacher, and that they are going to eventually work together and walk down the same path. So what I'm thinking is going to go on here is that most likely when Aoyama returns back to the group, Shinso is going to return as well, and that they are going to be linked together from what we see in this chapter. This means that whenever Aoyama or whenever Shinso shows back up into the story proper, the other will be right beside them. And I think what most likely is going to happen potentially is that this is going to lead to potentially Shinso gaining a like pseudo provisional hero license, because they are just in this state of like turmoil and chaos where random people are acting as heroes, and that there's no way that you can police that objectively. So I think that most likely what they're going to do is use Shinso in the same vein as Aoyama and have them both fight on the front lines. But the major difference between them and normal civilians is that at the very least, they have had some hero training. And with that training, that I think possibly what's going to happen is that Shinso is going to sort of kind of be Aoyama's handler. Where if Aoyama thinks that he's getting nervous or that he may betray the students, you'll have Shinso right next to him saying like, "Are you sure about that?" Aoyama will respond to it, and that it will put him in a state of being able to be controlled by Shinso to at the very least mellow him out, to give him a little bit more time to think about his actions and that he can recompose himself. So I do think that Shinso is going to be playing a role more in Aoyama's growth, because in this chapter, Aizawa was sort of kind of able to break through Aoyama's self-pity, if only for a short amount of time. So I think that Shinso will be able to break down Aoyama's barrier of self-pity a little bit more with the help of Aizawa. And tying it to what I think Shinso will actually do in the war, Shinso, like Aizawa, will most likely play a bigger role in the war moving forward because they just have very strong abilities. Shinso has the capability to put multiple people under his trance as long as he's able to ask each and every one of them a separate question, which may take a lot more time than just Aizawa's erasure of quirks. But it means that if he's able to do it multiple times against multiple people, he's able to instantly incapacitate them, which makes sense for why they would want him in the war. And from what we've seen in this chapter with his new hero costume, he won't be a detriment because he would have been training, if not on the same level as the hero course, at a very similar level, which will make him very proficient at being a hero, even though he may not have the license. And we didn't know that he was going to be eventually promoted to the hero course, so it wouldn't be that much of a stretch to see him actually fighting the war and being able to hold his own against these more powerful foes. And just the fact that, like I said, he has a very powerful quirk, it will be very helpful. I don't think that it may work on Shigaraki or All for One, but it would be very cool to see that actually happening, put them in that state, but because of like how their quirks work, it may be able to snap them out of it instantly, so it won't be a foolproof plan, but it could work on pretty much any other villain. So what I think is pretty much going to happen over the next few chapters is that we're going to see more interactions between Aoyama and Shinso, showing more of their similarities, showing more of their differences, and showing that Shinso could have been like Aoyama if he allowed for like his own self-pity or his own self-doubt or his own like self to change away for what he wants to do is be a hero, and that Shinso is going to be an example which will force Aoyama to once again solidify what he wants to do, and then we may cut away from them now and then come back to them a little bit on when the war has actually started proper, and then they're going to be playing major roles in it, taking out villains and being assets to the heroes, where we'll get more interactions between them and the other students. So something else that I want to add to the Shinso and Aoyama connection, I forgot, Shinso was the person that actually brainwashed Aoyama as well as Ojiro during the sports festival. So, you know, there's a connection there. So if Aoyama as well as Shinso were to work together, there is some precedent for that happening because they were able to work together, which also ties into the idea that I have that Shinso will use brainwashing on Aoyama once again if Aoyama ever gets like out of hand or begins to question himself, as a way of calming him down because he's already done it before. So there's a connection there. So that's something that I saw while editing this video, so I just wanted to give that point out. So yeah, back to the actual video, and just ignore that I changed clothes. So yeah, that's just my thoughts about it, and this is pretty much the discussion that I want to have. So let me ask you, what do you think of Aoyama's character right now? Because I think that from what we've seen in this chapter, there's still more to see with this character, but that we've almost fully fleshed him out as a character when it comes to his traitorous plotline and who he is as a person. So let me ask you, do you like where we're going with Aoyama's plotline, and where do you think that we're going to go with Shinso? And do you even think that we're going to get interactions between them in the next few chapters? Leave your thoughts down in the comments down below. Leave a like on the video if you liked it. Subscribe to my YouTube channel if you want to see more content like this. And don't forget to hit that notification bell to be notified for whenever I upload more content like this. Do all that cool jazz, and hopefully I'll be able to catch you in my next video. Goodbye!